Hey guys, welcome or welcome back. In today's video, we are going to be doing all things bookish. I feel like at the end of every month, there's a list of bookish tasks that I always do to kind of close out the current month and prep for a new month. So I figured I'd throw it all in one video. I'm going to kick it off with my January reading wrap up, which I read 14 books this month. That's not normal for me, but I felt like it was such a great reading month of reading books that are totally normal for me while also reading a bit of like nonfiction, genres, and topics I don't normally read about. It was great. I can't wait to share with you guys. We're also going to be updating my reading journal, Notion, Goodreads. I need to think about my February TBR. I'd like to throw like a few books on there that I kind of would like to prioritize. We'll see what happens, and we'll just see what else we get up to, because I'd like to do a bit of reading this weekend as well and throw that into this video. The first book I picked up in 2025 was The 13th Child by Erin A. Craig. This was my first book by this author, and I absolutely loved her writing and storytelling so much. I ended up picking up another book by her later in the month, but this book, you are following Hazel, who is child number 13 in her family. Unlucky number, she's an outcast, looked as less than, and she was promised to one of the gods when she was born. So she has been living her life waiting for that god to come and claim her. Eventually he does. What god, you may ask? The god of death. It happens. So he has this plan in this life set for her. He wants her to become a healer. So in this process, he has gifted her with the ability to see the cure that is needed to heal someone while simultaneously seeing if that person has the death mark on them, as in whatever ails them can't be cured. So with that, she has the responsibility of helping in their life now that she sees the death mark. So think about growing up like that. That is a wild gift to have. So we are seeing Hazel grow from youth to adult, and she ends up at the royal court where she sees the death mark on the king. And now she is just having this big dilemma of, should I be killing the king, or should I go against, you know, the will of God and like the will of death in this way? Like, she's just battling that so much. And I just really loved the storytelling of Hazel's life here. If you loved the discussions in the Belladonna trilogy of life and death and fate and how like those topics were discussed in that trilogy, I think you would really enjoy this book. The next book I picked up was Shadow of Night by Deborah Harkness. This is the second book in the All Souls trilogy, so this is the second book following A Discovery of Witches. I really enjoyed this as well. This is a very dense trilogy. There are books following this, but I know that the first three books are kind of this concluding trilogy, and then you can continue the story if you want. So with this, can't really talk about the plot of it, but I will say that this book had me interested in history like no other. Guys, history is not my thing, okay? Your girl got her degree in STEM. I am a science girly. I was Googling like history books after this. Like, I wanted history books in this setting. It was crazy. It was crazy. Like, that's just like not normal for me, but I really enjoyed it. And I guess the main plot of the trilogy is you are following these two main characters. One is a witch, one is a vampire. Of course, you have that like forbidden love thing going on, but she, our main female character, the witch, she has found this book accidentally that everyone is sought after. It is believed to hold kind of the origin of life for like the witches, the vampires, the demons, all that live just amongst us humans. And she sends it back accidentally, not realizing like what it was. And since then, everyone is like after her and that book. And so she is now going on this quest of finding it again and figuring out what to do. And she has her vampire mans along with her for that journey. It's really good. So this was so dense that I wanted something to follow up with it that was still fantasy. I was in a fantasy mood, but something not as info heavy. And that is where I picked up the first book. What is this like? Do we know if this has a name for the series? But it's An Ember in the Ashes. So this was popular, I feel like, a while ago, but it resurfaced because of the new book Air that came out by this author that I think follows characters from this world, from this series later. But point is, if you read that, you're gonna get spoils for this. So I went ahead and picked up book 1. this is exactly what I needed. This was exactly what I needed after something so info heavy. This was just easy to follow, easy to get into. You are following Leia, and Elias. So we're just gonna say Leia because I don't remember. Leia is a slave, Elias is a soldier. So Elias had her brother kind of kidnapped from the king right in front of her, and she wants to get him back. So she turns to the rebel group to do so. She is tasked to essentially work within the military camp to help give information to the rebellion group so that they can do their thing. In the military side, she's just working as a slave in there, unfortunately. So it's not like she is trying to infiltrate the military group academy as like a military woman. Does that make sense? Okay. But this is where she meets Elias, who she learns he also doesn't agree with what the kingdom is doing and how they're acting and like what they're being tasked to do as a military group. So that's kind of where they can align. But this was a great start to it. It is not that deep, not that serious, and it was perfect what I needed, and I can't wait to continue it. The next book I picked up was House of Salt and Sorrows. This is also by Erin A. Craig, and it is the Sisters of Salt book 1. I don't know how many books there are, but I rated this lower than I think I would have if I was just locked in and focused with it. I listened to this as an audiobook primarily, and I felt like that took me out of the story a lot because I was multitasking a lot. It wasn't like listening to an audiobook while I just like sit in color. It was like I was working while I was listening, so I think that made me not really into the characters and caring about all the characters as much, but I'm still very interested and I want to continue on with it because like by the end I was like, wait, this is just like so good how all of this stuff is unraveling. So I can't remember what the main character's name is, but this is following a family of all girls, a large family of all girls, where they believe they have this curse on them because the sisters like just keep dying in like various ways, all believed to be various accidents, but they keep dying. And off the page, right at the start of the book, another sister dies, and our main female character, she just doesn't believe that it was an accident. She believes that it was purposeful, so she is trying to figure out what happens, and you are introduced to side characters that come into the picture that are very interesting, very like, you're gonna be important. Like, how are you? Like a man just randomly shows up on the dock? Interesting. So, I mean, it was a fun story, a fun mystery to follow. I'm curious to see like what the like Sisters of Salt series is supposed to be, but I would like to maybe do a reread in the far future to see if like if I was just sat and focused, like how much more information and feelings would be there. But I recommend it. It's not that I don't. It wasn't something I was like obsessing over or thinking a whole lot about. It was time. Okay, it was time to finally pick up Iron Flame. If you remember from 2 years ago, last November, I read the first 100 pages of this around the time that it came out, but then I was filming a video for it. I didn't want to film the video anymore, so I kind of just put it down and never picked it back up. There was nothing wrong with the book. It was a me thing. So I picked this up. I did my reread of Fourth Wing, I think in December. Picked this up the week before Onyx Storm was being released, and I ate this up. You guys, it was just like I was in it the entire way. I don't know what it was the second time around because I felt like the first time it was taking me a lot to get through those first 100 pages, but this, I was sat and locked in. It's a lot more information. It's a lot more political, military strategy, all of that, but I really enjoyed it. I was following along the entire time. It doesn't mean I understand anything and everything. It's the fact that all these names of places are being like talked about and visited, and I think I was so immersed in the fact that Rebecca Yarros just created this world, and it felt real. Like it felt real to me. I was like, yeah, no, like this is just like a history book being talked about in a way, you know, like this is real events that happened and I'm just reading about them. Wow. So this is a great continuation for me of Fourth Wing to where I ended this and I was so excited to dive into Onyx Storm. Where's that book at? I didn't read it immediately after. I read some books between, but might as well talk about Onyx Storm now. To me, Onyx Storm is like Fourth Wing and Iron Flame had a baby, because this was definitely more informative in a way, less bingeable in my eyes. But this felt like the writing was bingeable, like Fourth Wing, while having all of the political military strategy from Iron Flame. I loved every second of this book. Every second. Like, the reread is gonna hit so hard. No, but where's book 4? No, but take your time, but like, where's book 4? Because this was a wild ride, and I found myself caring a lot more about like a few of our side characters than I had previously. Because I felt like after Fourth Wing, if you know, you know, like, I was just like, okay, but if I had to care about more side characters, like, how much would I really care? Like, I care about our dragons and Violet and Xaden, but as far as like their friends and stuff, like, who do I really care a lot about? I developed a lot of those emotions in this book. So I'm very excited to see the continuation of it and like where it goes. I mean, as the third book in the series, it hurt to have it in the way it did and just have so many questions and be like, okay, but like, where are we gonna go from here? And like, I was just excited thinking about it and thinking about what could happen. It hurts that it ended. Like, it hurts that it ended in the way that it ended. Wow, DM me if you've read it. But at the same time, I mean, it's the third book, so I expected to not have like answers to everything. Honestly, we got a lot of answers in a lot of aspects, but knowing that it's a turning point in the 5-book series, like, I was not disappointed with this. I had a great time with all aspects of this book. The next book I read was To Shatter the Night. This is the second book following To Kill a Shadow by Catherine Quinn, so it is the Mistlands duology. I checked out the first book from the library. Like, I was just browsing the aisles, I saw this book, I picked it up, read the synopsis, and I was like, wait, this sounds good. Nearly gave it 5 stars. Like, it just barely missed that 5-star feeling. So I was so excited when the second book came out. I also decided to check it out from the library. Now, before we talk about like the second book, let's go ahead and give a synopsis to the first. So you are following Jude and Kiara. Jude is kind of known as like the Hand of Death. He runs or is like the lead of the, I think it's like Knights of the Eternal Star, but kind of think of like kind of these special groups of military, a smaller circle. He runs that. And so he's taking the Eternal Star Knights group into the Misted Shadows, which essentially is just like this big foggy forest that's just like slowly encroaching on the land and, you know, killing people. It has a bunch of evil things inside of it, and like they're embarking on this mission to find a cure to kind of get rid of the mist. In comes Kiara. She is an outlaw essentially, and she isn't fearful of Jude. Shocker. Because she just sees him as like a leader that needs to survive, and that's exactly how she has felt. So she is included on this mission. I don't know if the synopsis talks about why. I can't remember if I know why, but she's included on this, and the whole thing is just them going into this mist full of nightmares, and they're gonna, like, those evil beings are gonna try to harm everyone in the group mentally, physically. So it's a crazy journey. And I felt like the first book, I loved everything about it. I loved the dialogue. I loved our side characters, the found family, the main plot, the romance. I mean, absolutely every part of this was written so well, and like I was immersed into it. Same difference. So when the second book came out, I was just so excited to see like, well, where are we gonna go from here? It fell a little flat for me. So to me, this makes sense, and I wrote it in my review for the second book. The first book, with like the topics discussed, the things that happened, everything about it, it felt like the emphasis was on adult for the young adult genre. So it was like young adult, okay? So when I get a second book, I felt that the emphasis was on young, and it just like that progression did not make sense to me. I felt like the dialogue and just like what was happening, what was being said, and like nothing about it felt like it made sense for me. So it fell a little flat, but overall I would say it's a 4-star duology. Pick it up if it interests you. Check it out from your library. There's no need to buy it if you think like you may not like it, but I enjoyed the audiobook. I also read it physically, so yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that. I hope that made sense. I feel like it did. The next book I read is We Free the Stars by Hafsa Faisal. That is the second book following We Hunt the Flame. I'm not sure if this duology has a name, but we're just going to use this guy as a little prop because I don't own the second book. So I'm going to go into the synopsis of this before I talk about the feelings I have on book 2, because I can't really talk about that synopsis. So I have only read A Tempest of Tea by this author before, and that was so different than this. I hadn't realized heading into this that the author took inspiration from ancient Arabia. So different like words in your everyday life and different terms and names of places, I believe took inspiration then from the Arabic language, if not direct. And so without a lot of the context to clearly like tell me what that word means, I was so lost for the first like 30 to 40%. But once I got my footing and understanding in the world, I absolutely loved the second part of this book. Like I was in it and I was caring about our characters, I was caring about the plot, I was completely like immersed in the world. So in this, you are following Safira and Nasir. Now Safira is a huntress disguised as a hunter. She is essentially helping feed her village by pretending to be a man hunting in the Ars, which is a shadowed forest full of evil lurking creatures. And the thing is, she's going in and out of this forest, like just hunting and surviving fine, but she's one of the only few. Everyone else enters and has their like mind completely messed with or just outright killed by the creatures that live there. So she has been sought out by the king to go on this expedition to help find whatever cure will help lift this dark forest. It's so funny talking about this after To Kill a Shadow and To Shadow the Night, but very similar vibe. This is very much more adult, like just straight up adult, but she's been sought out to help that expedition. Now you have Nasir, who is the Prince of Death. He is assassinating those foolish enough to defy his autocratic father, the Sultan. Classic, right? Classic formula. So they're all going on this exhibition to get through the forest, onto whatever land has what they think is the cure and all of that. Now, the second half, like I said, completely in it. So I was so excited for the duology and like just how this book was gonna like wrap up in a second book. It fell flat for me. I would say overall, it's like a 3-star, 3.5-star duology. I think I loved the plot of this. The plot and like our characters as individuals and the found family and friends and all of that, really enjoyed. There is a romance in here with our main characters. And in the first book, it felt right. It felt like everything made sense, like this slow burn vibe to it. Loved. The second book, it felt so out of pocket. Like I felt like I didn't see any chemistry grow to where I was like, I don't understand why you guys have feelings for each other. Like I'm just so out of the story every time we bring up the romance. So I would say enter this book with wanting to kind of maybe get out of your comfort zone with it and like having fun with the plot of this. Don't read it for the romance. Next, I picked up 2 nonfiction books. I listened to them as audiobooks while I was working. The first one is We the Poisoned, which is exposing the Flint water crisis cover-up. You guys, I didn't give this a rating because like that just feels weird to like rate a story about our government sucking. So, okay. The audiobook though, I highly recommend it. If you're just like interested in kind of like those true crime documentaries or just like cover up stories, like the audiobook of this felt like I was just listening to a documentary, and it was just so well done. And so I wrote in my review, it felt like one long podcast informing us how corrupt those in power can be and continue to be. So it was just so scary to read this and like think about how no one's really been like charged with this. Like it is still technically an issue, and that is just so wild to me that it's just so open and widely known, but like nothing's being done about it. Wow. So that was the first one. The second one doesn't get any better, unfortunately. So it is Harbingers. It is what January 6th and Charlottesville reveal about rising threats to American democracy. I got both of these books through my Libro FM ALC program, so normally not books I would just find on my own, but I'm so glad I did. This was another one where the audiobook was really well done. So I just put in summary, exercise your right to vote. Yeah. So I will say the audiobook felt like a conversation I was having with someone rather than like someone just reading words from a page. I really enjoyed how it was told. It was very informative, and it just felt like someone that's just like, this is what happens And it was, okay, this is what happens when like someone who does care about something or doesn't like what someone's doing but doesn't exercise the right to vote, because then the people that are louder have their voices heard and their votes counted for, putting those people in power. And that's, I mean, they're talking about all levels here. This is like anything from your local to the president, you know what I mean? I just thought this was important, and I'm really glad that I listened to it. I'm trying to get out of my comfort zone, read or listen to a bit more nonfiction, and just like learning about different situations, like the the Flint water crisis. Like, I've heard of it, but it's not like I was super educated with it. Charlottesville, I do not remember the racist riot that happened. I could have when it happened in 2017, but I just like didn't remember it when it was first talked about. Obviously I know about January 6th, but the person, Timothy Heppy, he is the author of this, and he was an investigator, like a lead investigator in both of those situations. So this is kind of like his take on this. It was so good. Next, I read The Wild Huntress by Emily Lloyd Jones. This, I think, was recommended to me through like Kindle. Like, hey, if you liked this book that you just read, like, these are recommendations I have. Wow. Okay, so you have these two kingdoms that every 5 years they go on the wild hunt, and essentially like the winner is granted kind of like a wish or something that the king will do to help you in whatever way you want. And so you have the immortal kingdom and like this mortal kingdom, essentially, where you have people like Fae and then like these normal humans, like all in this wild hunt, all wanting to win. And so you have our main female character that wants to win in order to help cure her mom, and she's kind of like your commoner, you know. And then you have our main male character who wants to win in order to make sure his brother doesn't take the throne, that he thinks he's just like this tyrant of a brother that just wants to harm people without thought. And then you have our third character who essentially was prince born but monster made, and he just wants to prove himself. So you have all three of them working together in the wild hunt to ultimately win. It was so good. It is a standalone fantasy, so if you want a bit more of that, you're like tired of diving in to all of these series that you're like, they're unfinished or there's just so many books, I can't commit to that. Like, this is a standalone fantasy that I absolutely loved. The next book I read is A Reign of Rose by Kate Golden. That is the third book in the Sacred Stones trilogy. I do not own a physical copy, so once again, we're just going to use the first book as a little prop, but I'm going to dive into the synopsis of this, and then once again, I'll let you know my thoughts and feelings on the third book. So we are following Arwen, who has offered her life to save her brothers, and she is taken to this dark kingdom, the Onyx Kingdom, and she is told that she's going to work as a healer to help the soldiers. Now, she doesn't want to be there. She wants to return to her family, like escape somehow, and so she is going to have to fight through the Onyx Kingdom and learn how to, you know, deal with royals and aristocrats and all of that in order to eventually escape. And so obviously, when you think about any book that kind of has two sides to a war, to a battle, she has heard nothing but bad things about this kingdom, and now she's thrown into it, and you're always going to start to see the other side, and you're like, wait, like my whole life, I've been told you're evil and bad. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. So you have magic in here, you have kings, you have whatever the heck Arwen is. And then you just have a bunch of side characters that you learn to just love so much. I love the found family through this entire trilogy. So that's kind of kicking off book one. As far as the third book, I really enjoyed the first two. I think the third fell a little flat for me. So it's like a 4-star trilogy. So I really enjoyed it overall, but the third book, I just felt like I wasn't as invested in what was going on. I felt like I didn't care as much. I didn't love the writing of it as much as the first two. So I still recommend it because it really was a short and sweet, fun trilogy. But the third book, I was just a little disappointed. The last book I have to talk about is A Sea of Unspoken Things by Adrienne Young. This book came out in January. You guys, I read this in 2 days. It is a pretty short book, but I absolutely loved it. So I read The Unmaking of June Farrow, I don't know, sometime late last year, and I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. If you read that book, this is more of like a murder mystery vibe. but it still holds Adrienne Young's just writing and storytelling capability. So I felt like The Unmaking of June Farrow is really like a mystery of June, figuring out kind of like what is her family history, like what is going on with her, and like, I wouldn't say gifts, but like these abilities that she's having that she's just very confused about. This, you are following James, who is a twin to her brother Johnny, and page 1, she learns that Johnny has died and she's returning to her hometown where she escaped from, essentially, to figure out like what the heck she's now supposed to do with like Johnny's stuff and everything. But quickly she feels like Johnny's death was not an accident. So it's ruled an accident early on, and she's like, that freaking sucks. This hurts. I'm numb, you know, like she has this twin brother, right? But then she starts to be like, wait, I just feel like this is not an accident. And so you dive into a few different mysteries going on here, and I just felt like this was so Adrienne Young. This was so beautiful. I love the storytelling of this. The mystery was so interesting. I felt like it was the perfect like length. Like this was like an 8-hour audiobook at like just one-time speed. And so you can see by that it's relatively short, but this was everything it needed to be. Like it was everything it needed to be, and I'm already excited for whatever book that she comes out with next. So those are all the books that I read in January. Please let me know if you read any of them and kind of what you thought about it, because I'm always so curious to know people's thoughts and opinions on the same books that I read. Like, do we agree? Do we disagree? Is there something I missed? Like, I just want to know. Obviously, no spoilers down below, but if you want to talk spoilers, just message me. Good morning, it's the next day. I'm gonna go ahead and make my matcha and then go sit out on my balcony to do the computer stuff I want to do, like update my Notion and update Goodreads with all of like the reviews I've yet to make, because it is so nice today. I have the window open, so I don't know if you can like hear the birds chirping and everything, but I live in Southern California and we have a high of 75 today. Blue skies, a high of 75. I didn't know today would be perfect, so I'm so excited just like sit outside, get some fresh air. I'm gonna go ahead and make my matcha, and then I will see you guys outside. I just made my matcha. Also, it is so crisp and nice outside. Like, I brought my fuzzy blanket in case my legs get a little chilly because I'm wearing shorts for the first time in months. But you guys, I forgot I had this glass. So I got these like waterproof stickers from my friend Tamora last year for our like Galentine's get together. We got each other like little like gift baskets, if you will. And so she got these bookish stickers. I cannot remember what it's called right now, but if I find it, I'm gonna link it down below, because I got some other stuff from her. She had like glasses that were already done, but these were just like a sticker pack, like a waterproof sticker pack that I could just put on my own glasses. And they're so cute with like the little candied hearts, especially for February. Like, this is great. And it's a good matcha today. Okay. I have my laptop here. I think I'm gonna go ahead and start with Goodreads and just update all the reviews I want to get done, and then I will shift over to Notion. So let's go ahead and post all the reviews I've yet to do for Goodreads. I just knocked out all of the Goodreads side of things, so I'm gonna go ahead and update my Notion. I will do a little screen recording so you can see what I'm doing, but I also have this year decided I wanted to add in the reviews I post on Goodreads as like a little comment section in Notion, so I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I have all of that copied over as well. Okay, we are trying to find any lighting that will not make this too bad, but I just got to this little park. I just want to sit outside and do my reading journal part of this, so I need to update my January spread, my February spread, which I will show you guys, and then I will let you guys know kind of a little February TBR, and then there are some kind of like yearly spreads that I need to update as well. So I figured on this beautiful day where it's 75 degrees, we're going to go to the park and we're going to sit outside and do a bit of journaling. Okay, I just finished up doing all of my spreads. So I did my like overall reading journal, reading log for the year. I updated that. And then I need to update my new releases, but that kind of stresses me out right now. So I updated the rest of my reading log for my January spread. I love this so much. So I just did all the books that I read. I did add in like the new releases and my a mini TBR. So I read Iron Flame and We Free the Stars, but I didn't get to Crooked Kingdom or Heavenly Bodies. Now for February, I love this spread so much. So as far as, I guess it's to this side, so I added in the new releases coming out this month that I'm interested in. And then as far as my TBR, I'm not making like normal TBRs. I'm making them like, these are just a few books I would love to prioritize this month for whatever reason. So I want to prioritize reading A Monsu Rising. That is the second book following the Hurricane Wars. And then I want to read Crooked Kingdom and Quicksilver. So Quicksilver, I have the physical book and the audiobook from Audible. Crooked Kingdom, I have the Audible audiobook as well, and then the physical book, but I have the audiobook from Libby that's just like a couple weeks away. And then Monsu Rising, I have the audiobook from Libro FM's like ALC program, and I want to get the ebook from the library. So it's on hold. It should hopefully be here in February as well. So I figured those three books are good for me to kind of prioritize. As far as new releases coming out in February, I'm excited about. We have The Beast We Bury. I'll try to put like cover shots of what they are. And then All Shall Mourn and Scythe and Sparrow, First Time Caller, and Rebel Witch. So it is going to be a great month of book releases on top of just books I'm already reading. I'm just so excited. I'm so excited. Do we have anything left on the list that I wanted to do? So I have my little, where's my bookish list? Bookish list, reading journal, February TBR, check. So last thing I was going to do just at the park here was going to read a little bit. So I'm going to read my book, and then whenever I get home, we'll do like a little reading update and wrap up this video. Sitting outside with the sun just on my skin, it fixed something in my soul. Something I didn't know was broken. Wow, do I miss summer. Like filming this clip, it genuinely feels like, oh, I just got back from the pool and like, let me give you guys a little reading update and like my big t-shirt and shorts and just like having a peace of mind. I think that's what it feels like right now. I absolutely loved going outside, sitting at the park. I also had my friend join me that's nearby. I just like texted her on a whim, like, hey, by the way, I'm gonna be here if you want to join. So she came and read and yapped for like an hour. It was just great. So I just wanted to film this like bookish video over the weekend, doing all kind of my monthly reset bookish things. So I didn't know if I would be able to finish a book this weekend. So I figured I would at least end this video with a reading update on what I'm currently reading and what I'm currently thinking and feeling about it. So I have my physical book I'm reading alongside with an ebook. So I am reading The Favorites on my Kindle, and I also have the audiobook alongside it. I recommend both. I'm only a little over like 15% of the way into it. I have seen this book anywhere and everywhere on Instagram. I feel like everyone's loving it, and I totally get why. I mean, I'm curious to see like how this expands in the next portion of the book, but so far I've absolutely loved this. You are following these two ice skaters that, I mean, listen, tough luck. It's not like they're born like with money and this future that they have of wanting to ice skate, you know, ultimately for like the Olympics. That's not going to be something easy for them. So you are seeing our main characters as young as 16 and what their current like lifestyle is like, how hard they're having to work, like how many like jobs and shifts and everything just to make it work. And so you've seen them at 16. That's like this set of chapters. And then other chapters are present time, and you're following 10 years after this big incident happens, and they're making a documentary for like the anniversary of it. And so you have this documentary style of like narrators and people they're interviewing, and so it's a full cast audiobook. But I would say like because of the back and forth of the chapters like that, I think I would have a hard time following just the audiobook. Yet if I just read this, I feel like I wouldn't get the full experience of like the full cast narration. So I really recommend the like hybrid read. I've just really loved it so far. Then you have my Throne of Glass journey. I am currently reading Empire of Storms. I'm like 30% or so of the way into it. I'm on chapter 27 right now. I'm essentially doing a buddy read with one of my friends where we're reading like 60 or so pages a day, and that way we're not like binging it, but it's also attainable on like the days that are super busy and we can't necessarily like read 60 pages. Well, at least you don't have that much to make up for the next day. So it's worked great for us so far. So I have some more reading on this for today, but I mean, can't really talk about Throne of Glass at this point. Like Empire of Storms, we're not even gonna talk about, but I've loved my journey so far. I have my part 1 reading vlog up now, and then I'm filming the part 2 of finishing the series. I love this world. Like, I love this world so much, and our characters, it hurts so much that it hurts. But between these two, I've really liked having this as something that's not another fantasy book, because I have been reading like 2 different fantasy books at a time sometimes, and I do get them confused. I'm like, wait, was that the plot of that book? Or like, am I taking a part of this plot from another book? So I think the more times that I can read something that isn't another fantasy book alongside like my Throne of Glass read, the better. So having this has been really fun. But yeah, let me know if you've read the favorites, because I've seen so many people read it and love it, so I would be curious to see if you guys have read it and also loved it so far. But let me know how you like this video, as far as not having the wrap up TBR in its like own secluded video, but just throwing it into a bookish video like this. I feel like I like filming vlogs so much, so when I just have to do a sit down video, sometimes I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? Just like sit here and talk for like 30-45 minutes? Like, I can do it, but I feel like filming vlogs is just so much more fun for me, and editing and all of that. But okay, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your favorite reads of January, what you're looking forward to in February, and I will see you in my next one.